My biological mother wants to be there for my baby's birth, but I can't see her as anything more than my sister. Hi, I'm 31F. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Oliver, and am currently 7 months pregnant with our first child, a little girl. The pregnancy has gone well, but it has stirred up some intense emotions within my family. My biological mother, Christy, had me when she was just 17. My grandparents adopted me, treating me like one of their own. For years, I believed Christy and her two older brothers were my siblings, and I thought I was a surprise baby. Growing up, I wasn't particularly close to Christy, as she moved across the country for college and stayed there afterward. She visited during holidays, but I always felt her distance. My brothers were active in my life, inviting me to spend time with them, but Christy never made an effort to bond with me. In fact, we never had a one-on-one experience together throughout my childhood. Now, Christy is married and has two teenage sons, but I still feel like I don't know them well outside of family gatherings. I discovered Christy was my biological mom during my junior year of high school, which was a shocking revelation. My parents explained that she loves me deeply, but was too young to be a mother. They also mentioned that my biological father was abusive towards her, and I haven't wanted to know more about him. I'm incredibly grateful that Christy allowed my grandparents to raise me. I can't imagine how hard it must have been for her to see me at family gatherings. After finding out the truth, my relationship with Christy didn't change much. It only clarified her reasons for keeping her distance. My grandmother, who was like a mom to me, passed away 2 years ago. This loss was devastating. She was my rock and my confidant. Christy came to town for the funeral, and it marked the first time we openly discussed our relationship. She expressed a desire to know me better, and after that, we had a week-long visit filled with deep conversations. She shared that it was painful for her to give me up and that she wants to build a real relationship now that she feels ready. I was excited about this development, and we've been communicating more through texts and calls since. I love Christy and appreciate our progress, but I can't see her as my mother. In my heart, my mom is gone, and I'm just hoping to develop a bond with Christy like that of older sisters. Recently, however, it seems like Christy wants more from our relationship. Ever since I shared the news of my pregnancy, she has been calling even more often. She sent me gifts and offered advice, eager to be involved in this new chapter. At first, I was thrilled and thought we were aligned in her role as my daughter's aunt. But things shifted during a phone call over the weekend. Unexpectedly, Christy asked if she could fly out to assist me during my delivery. I told her I appreciated the offer, but assured her I would manage just fine. I mentioned that my mother-in-law, who has been a significant part of my life since high school, would be present during the birth and would help me get settled afterward. Christy reminisced about how our mother supported her during the births of her sons and expressed her desire to offer the same for me. I gently reminded her that my mother-in-law would be there, and I thought she would understand my wishes. To my surprise, Christy called later, sounding upset. She said she was disappointed I wasn't including her in the birth of my child. I tried to explain that I didn't think she would be offended, as she has her hands full raising her teenage boys, and that we didn't share the kind of bond where she would expect to be involved. Christy insisted my daughter is her granddaughter and that she wants to be a part of her life, just like my mother-in-law. I was taken aback by her insistence. I clarified that in my view, she is my older sister, and that makes her my daughter's aunt, not her grandmother. Christy countered that we never had the chance to form a mother-daughter relationship due to circumstances and didn't understand why she couldn't take on a grandmotherly role. I reiterated that I want her to be close with my daughter, but felt uncomfortable having her in the delivery room or at my home right after the baby is born. Christy said she understood but sounded hurt and ended the call. Later that day, my older brother Christopher called. He said he wasn't supposed to share this, but he felt I was breaking Christy's heart. He mentioned that she endured a lot to give me a happy life with our family and asked why I wouldn't allow her to be a part of my child's life. I explained that while I'm grateful to Christy, it feels like she's using my baby as a chance to redo the past. If I had to choose someone to be with me during the delivery, it would be Christopher, since he and I have a strong bond. Christopher thought I was being harsh, but I just don't see Christy as my mom, and I don't need her to fulfill motherly roles for me now. It stings that she desires this close relationship when she never made an effort to build even a sisterly bond with me throughout my life. I want to continue nurturing our relationship, and I'm happy about our progress. But this isn't something that can be forced just because I'm having a baby. Eta, I would appreciate any advice on how to handle this situation. Update 1. Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks since my last post, and things have gotten more complicated. After my conversation with Christopher, I found myself reflecting on everything. I couldn't shake off the feeling that Christy was viewing my pregnancy as a second chance for the relationship we never had, and it was bothering me. I decided to reach out to Christy to clarify my feelings. I called her, and we had an honest discussion about our relationship. I explained that I appreciate her wanting to be involved, but that I want to set boundaries. I told her that my daughter will be surrounded by love from her grandparents and uncles, and I wanted Christy to understand that my mother-in-law will play a significant role, as she always has. To my surprise, Christy responded with a lot of understanding. She admitted she had been feeling vulnerable since my grandmother's passing, and expressed how the thought of being involved in my daughter's life felt like a way to honor her memory. This made me realize how deeply her emotions were tied to my pregnancy, and I empathized with her. We ended the call on a positive note, agreeing to focus on building our relationship gradually. However, just when I thought things were settling, I received a text from my brother a few days later. He said that Christy had reached out to him, expressing sadness about my decision not to have her in the delivery room. He mentioned that she felt like she had lost another child in some ways, and it made me rethink everything. As much as I care about Christy, I couldn't ignore that my feelings were still valid. I felt like I was constantly walking a tightrope between my desire to maintain a relationship and her expectations. It became apparent that my brother might have shared more than I had intended, and I began to feel frustrated. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone involved. After a few days of contemplation, I decided to send Christy a heartfelt message. I acknowledged her feelings, expressing that I understood where she was coming from, but reiterated my need for boundaries. I suggested we meet for coffee to discuss our feelings face to face, hoping that would ease some of the tension and misunderstandings. She agreed, and I felt relieved that we were taking this step. The meeting was surprisingly productive. We talked openly about our past, her desire to connect with my daughter, and my boundaries. Christy shared her regrets about the past, her fears of being left out, and how she felt a maternal instinct rising within her since learning about my pregnancy. I told her that while I appreciated her intentions, I still felt the need to prioritize my comfort and the family dynamic I have with Oliver and my in-laws. After a lot of back and forth, we reached a compromise. Christy could visit a few weeks after the baby arrives, allowing her to bond with her as an aunt without overwhelming me during the transition. I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Finally, it felt like we were working together to build something positive rather than forcing an unrealistic expectation on both sides. While I know there will still be challenges ahead, I felt more optimistic about our relationship. We both agreed to communicate more openly moving forward, and I genuinely hope that this will lead to a healthier dynamic for all of us. Thanks for all the support and advice. It really helped me navigate this situation. Update 2. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you all an update after my meeting with Christy. Things have been calmer, and I thought we were on the right path. However, I quickly learned that communication isn't just about expressing feelings. It's also about action. A few days after our talk, I was surprised when I received a package at my doorstep. It was filled with baby clothes, toys, and a letter from Christy expressing her excitement about becoming an aunt. At first, I was touched by the gesture, but it also felt like a lot of pressure. I hadn't even had the baby yet, and I was already feeling overwhelmed by her eagerness. Later that week, Oliver and I had a planned ultrasound appointment to check on our little girl. I decided to share the experience with my parents-in-law, but I didn't mention inviting Christy. I felt it was a special moment for our immediate family, and I didn't want to add any additional pressure. That evening, while I was preparing for the appointment, I got a call from Christopher. He seemed agitated and told me that Christy was upset that I hadn't invited her to the ultrasound. He said she had mentioned it to him and felt excluded from such an important milestone. I was taken aback because we had agreed to take things slowly. I tried to explain to Christopher that it was a personal choice. I didn't want to rush into something that felt forced, especially since we hadn't established that level of closeness yet. It was frustrating to feel like I was constantly having to justify my decisions. Christopher was adamant that I was hurting Christy by keeping her at arm's length, and I felt torn between wanting to be understanding and needing to protect my boundaries. After our conversation, I felt stressed and decided it was time to have another heart-to-heart with Christy. I sent her a text, asking if we could chat about the ultrasound situation. She agreed, and I braced myself for what might be a tough conversation. When we spoke, I approached the subject delicately. I explained that while I appreciated her enthusiasm, I wasn't ready for her to be involved in every aspect of my pregnancy. I reiterated our agreement about taking things slow and expressed my concern that the gifts and expectations were overwhelming me. I wanted her to understand that I needed to establish my family dynamic before adding more layers to it. Christy was quiet for a moment, and then she spoke up. She expressed that she had been feeling insecure about her role and that she thought she was doing the right thing by showing enthusiasm and being present. She didn't realize her actions were coming off as pressuring. We had a deep discussion about the balance between wanting to be involved and respecting my wishes. In the end, we decided to take a step back and focus on just enjoying the moments as they come. We agreed that she could come visit after the baby arrives, and I promised to keep her updated with photos and milestones. I felt like we were finally on the same page, but part of me wondered if this was truly the end of the conflict or if it would resurface later. It's been a few days since our talk, and I feel a mix of hope and uncertainty. I genuinely want to foster a relationship between Christy and my daughter, but I still worry about the dynamics at play. I know that once the baby is here, emotions will run high, and I'm preparing myself for that reality. Thanks for following along with my journey. I really appreciate the support and advice. I'll keep you updated as things progress. Update 3. Hey everyone! It's been a few more weeks, and I'm back with another update. As my due date approaches, I've been focused on preparing for the baby and establishing a peaceful environment for her arrival. I thought we had everything figured out, but I was mistaken. A few days ago, I received another unexpected call from Christopher. He sounded more agitated than before and mentioned that Christy was feeling neglected again. He said that she felt I wasn't making enough effort to include her in the pregnancy process and was starting to withdraw emotionally. It was frustrating to hear because I thought we had come to an understanding. To be honest, I was beginning to feel a sense of guilt creeping in. I appreciated Christy's desire to be involved, but I still felt like I was being pulled in too many directions. It didn't help that my emotions were heightened as the due date approached, and I was starting to feel overwhelmed. With Christopher's comments lingering in my mind, I decided to call Christy for clarity. I wanted to address the concerns head-on instead of letting them fester. When we spoke, I tried to express my feelings without sounding dismissive. I told her how much I appreciated her excitement, but emphasized that I needed some space to prepare for the baby's arrival. To my surprise, Christy responded by saying that she felt I was shutting her out completely. She mentioned that she had been looking forward to being involved and felt sidelined because I wasn't sharing every detail of the pregnancy with her. I could hear the disappointment in her voice, and it stung. It was tough to hear because I had thought I was being fair and respectful of our agreed-upon boundaries. We ended up having a lengthy discussion about the expectations we both had for our relationship moving forward. Christy expressed her fears of being replaced by my mother-in-law, and I assured her that I valued her role as my daughter's aunt. However, I also reiterated that I was navigating a lot right now and needed to prioritize my mental health and comfort during this transition. By the end of the conversation, I realized that our relationship had become more complex than I had anticipated. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance her expectations with my need for boundaries. As much as I wanted to be supportive of her feelings, I knew I couldn't compromise my own needs. After we hung up, I took some time to process everything. I realized that while I want Christy to have a relationship with my daughter, it can't come at the expense of my own emotional well-being. I decided to put together a plan for how we could establish a connection after the baby arrives without overwhelming myself or Christy. I reached out to her again, suggesting we set up a weekly call once the baby is here so that she can be involved in her life without it feeling forced. I felt it was a good way to allow her to share her excitement while giving me the space I needed as a new mom. She seemed receptive to the idea, and we agreed to check in regularly to ensure both of us were comfortable. As my due date approaches, I still feel a mix of hope and anxiety about how everything will unfold. It's a new chapter, and I'm hopeful that we can navigate it together without losing sight of what is best for me and my daughter. I genuinely want to build a healthy relationship with Christy while also respecting my own boundaries. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. Your support means a lot. I'll keep you posted as things develop.